Hey there, welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime. I'm here to help you relax tonight. I know many of you listen to these stories as you drift off to sleep. So before you get cozy, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I'd love to hear from you. Now, settle in. Story 1. Every night at 3:03 a.m., her dead sister sent a voice note, but the phone was buried with her. The first voice note arrived 3 days after the funeral. At exactly 3:03 a.m., Aisha Khan woke up to the soft vibration of her phone against the wooden bedside table. She didn't open her eyes at first. It was probably spam, or one of her friends sending late-night nonsense again. But then it buzzed again, and again. Persistent. Annoying. Aisha groaned and reached blindly for her phone. Her eyes were still half closed as she unlocked it. One notification. WhatsApp voice message. From Zara. Aisha froze. Her heart skipped. That wasn't possible. Because Zara, her older sister, had been buried 3 days ago. Aisha sat upright instantly. Her breath became shallow. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. Maybe it was an old message? Delayed? Some kind of glitch? She tapped it. The voice note was 0:13 seconds long. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she pressed play. Static. Soft breathing. And then, a whisper. Aisha, don't trust. The audio cut. The room fell silent. Aisha stared at the phone, her pulse hammering in her ears. That was Zara's voice. Not similar. Not close. Exactly her voice. Same tone. Same breath pattern. Same slight tremble when she whispered. No, this isn't real, Aisha muttered. She checked the chat. It wasn't an old conversation. The timestamp was clear. 3:03 a.m., just now. Aisha jumped out of bed and rushed to her parents' room. Her mother opened the door, confused and half asleep. Aisha? What happened? Aisha shoved the phone forward. Ami, Zara sent this. She just sent this. Her mother frowned. What are you saying? That's not possible. Just listen. Her mother pressed play. Static. Breathing. Aisha, don't trust. Silence. Her mother's face drained of color. That's, she whispered. Neither of them finished the sentence. Because they both knew. By morning, the entire house was tense. Aisha's father tried to stay rational. It's some kind of technical error, he insisted. Maybe someone is using her number. But her phone was buried with her, Aisha said quietly. Silence. No one had an answer for that. Later that day, Aisha went to Zara's room. Everything was untouched. Clothes still folded. Books still stacked. Her favorite perfume still lingering faintly in the air. Aisha sat on the bed, clutching her phone. 3:03 a.m. Why that time? Why that message? And most importantly, don't trust, who? That night, Aisha didn't sleep. She kept staring at her phone. Waiting. Dreading. And then, 3:03 a.m. The phone buzzed. Another voice note. Her heart pounded as she opened it. 0:21 seconds. She pressed play. This time, there was no static. No delay. Just Zara's voice. Clear. Close. Aisha, listen carefully. They're lying about my death. I didn't. The message cut off again. Aisha felt like the ground beneath her had disappeared. They're lying, she whispered. Who? The doctors? The police? Her own family? The next morning, Aisha went straight to the hospital where Zara had been declared dead. The receptionist barely looked up. Yes. My sister, Zara Khan. She died 3 days ago. I need to see her records. The woman typed briefly, then paused. Her expression shifted. That's strange. What? Aisha asked. The receptionist looked at her again. There's no record of a Zara Khan dying here. Aisha's blood ran cold. That's not possible. She was brought here after the accident. She was declared dead here. The woman shook her head slowly. I'm sorry, but there's nothing in our system. Aisha stepped back. Her mind raced. If Zara didn't die in the hospital, then where did she die? And whose body did they bury? That night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., the third voice note arrived. Aisha didn't hesitate this time. She pressed play instantly. Zara's voice came through, urgent, desperate. Aisha, they are watching you now. Don't go to the police. Don't trust anyone. If you want to find me. A pause. A faint sound, like a door creaking. Then, barely audible. Check the grave. The message ended. Aisha sat frozen in the dark. Her phone slipped slightly in her trembling hands. Check the grave. But Zara was buried there. Wasn't she? Outside, the night felt heavier than before. Like something had shifted. Like something had noticed her listening. And somewhere, whoever was sending those voice notes knew exactly what they were doing. Aisha didn't wait for morning. She couldn't. The words echoed in her mind again and again. Check the grave. Her hands trembled as she grabbed her keys. The house was silent, her parents asleep, unaware that everything they believed about their daughter's death was about to be questioned. Outside, the night air was cold. Too cold for this time of year. Aisha drove through empty streets, her headlights slicing through the darkness. Every shadow looked alive. Every turn felt like a mistake. But she didn't stop, because deep down, she already knew something was terribly wrong. The graveyard gates were locked. A rusted chain wrapped tightly around the entrance. A sign hung loosely. Closed after 10 p.m. Aisha stared at it for a moment, then climbed over. Her shoes hit the ground with a dull thud. The silence that followed was suffocating. Graveyards weren't supposed to feel like this. This didn't feel peaceful. It felt watched. She turned on her phone's flashlight and began walking between the graves. Row after row. Names etched into stone. Dates that told stories of lives lived and ended. And then, she saw it. Zara Khan. The fresh soil. The flowers already beginning to wilt. Aisha's breathing became shallow. This is insane, she whispered. But her hands were already moving. She found a broken shovel near the back wall, probably left by a careless worker. And then, she started digging. The first few minutes were manageable. Then it became harder. The soil was damp. Heavy. Each scoop felt like lifting a piece of something she wasn't meant to touch. Her arms ached. Her nails filled with dirt. Sweat mixed with cold air on her skin. But she didn't stop, because every second, every breath, she could hear Zara's voice in her head. Check the grave. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes, the shovel hit something solid. Thud. Aisha froze. The coffin. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. Slowly, carefully, she brushed away the remaining dirt. Her hands hovered over the lid. This was the moment. The moment that would either prove she was losing her mind, or confirm something far worse. She gripped the edge, and pulled. The lid creaked open. Aisha leaned forward, and screamed, because the body inside was not Zara. It was a man, his face pale, lips slightly open, eyes half closed as if frozen in the moment of death. A stranger, completely unknown to her. Aisha stumbled back, falling onto the cold ground. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps. No, 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 no. This wasn't possible. They had buried this man in Zara's grave. Which meant Zara was never there. Her phone buzzed. Aisha flinched violently. 3:03 a.m. Another voice note. Her hands shook as she opened it. This time, Zara sounded closer. More urgent. You found it, didn't you? Aisha's breath hitched. That's not me. That's never been me. They needed a body, and they used him. A pause. They're running out of time. And now, so are you. The message ended. Aisha stared at the coffin again. At the stranger's lifeless face. Who are you? She whispered. Then something caught her eye. A mark. On the man's wrist. A small, black symbol. Almost like a tattoo. A triangle, with a line through it. Aisha frowned. She had seen that before. But wait! Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound. Footsteps. Not hers. Behind her. Slow. Deliberate. Aisha's blood ran cold. She turned slowly. Flashlight trembling in her hand. Nothing. Just rows of graves. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger. She grabbed her phone, her keys, anything, and scrambled out of the grave. Her instinct screamed one thing. Run. As she climbed over the gate and rushed to her car, she glanced back once. And in that moment, she saw it. A figure, standing near the grave, completely still, watching her. Aisha's heart nearly stopped. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, like it had been waiting. She jumped into her car and drove off without looking back again. Back home, she locked every door, every window. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She replayed everything in her mind. The grave, the stranger, the symbol, the voice note, the figure. Zara wasn't dead, but someone wanted everyone to believe she was. And now, Aisha had seen something she wasn't supposed to see. Her phone buzzed again. Not a voice note this time. A message. Unknown number. She opened it slowly. One line. You should have left her buried. Aisha's breath stopped. Because now she understood something terrifying. This wasn't just about Zara. This was bigger, more organized, more dangerous. And whoever was behind it was watching her too. Aisha didn't sleep. Not even for a second. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing. The coffin, the stranger, that symbol carved into his wrist. A triangle, with a line through it. Simple, but wrong. It wasn't just a tattoo. It felt like a mark, a warning, or worse, a label. By morning, Aisha had made a decision. She wasn't going to the police. Zara had made that clear. Don't trust anyone. Those words echoed louder now than ever. Instead, she opened her laptop and began searching. At first, nothing. Just random images, symbols, conspiracy forums, people making wild guesses about secret societies, cults, hidden organizations. But then, one result caught her attention. A discussion thread, buried deep in an old forum. Title: If you see this symbol, run. Aisha clicked. The post was short. Too short. Just one paragraph. They don't exist officially. No records. No names. No history. But if you see the triangle with a line, it means someone has been removed. Not killed. Erased. Aisha's fingers went cold on the keyboard. She scrolled further. Replies. Hundreds of them. Some mocking. Some terrified. Some too specific to ignore. One comment read, "My cousin disappeared last year. No missing report. No hospital record. Nothing. Like she never existed. I saw that symbol on a file in my uncle's office before it vanished." Another. "It's not random. They replace people. Bodies are just placeholders." Aisha leaned back slowly. Her mind raced. Replaced. Bodies used as substitutes. Her heart dropped. The man in Zara's grave. He wasn't just some random victim. He was a replacement. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Aisha flinched. Another message. Unknown number. Stop digging. Her breath caught. They knew. They knew she had been at the grave. They knew she was searching. Aisha quickly shut her laptop. For a moment, she just sat there, listening. The house was silent. Too silent. Then, a sound. A faint click. From the hallway. Aisha's heart started pounding again. Slowly, she stood up. Step by step, she moved toward the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. Then she opened it. The hallway was empty. But something felt wrong. She looked toward Zara's room. The door was slightly open. It hadn't been before. Aisha swallowed hard and stepped closer. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Inside, everything looked the same. Too same. Perfect. And then she saw it. On the bed. Zara's phone. Aisha froze. That phone had been buried. She had seen it herself. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The screen lit up instantly. No password. No lock. Just one open screen. A recording. Already playing. Zara's voice filled the room. But this time, it wasn't a voice note. It was a full recording. Clear. Steady. And terrified. Aisha, if you're hearing this, it means they made their move. Aisha's breath caught. They've been watching me for weeks. I didn't understand at first. Thought it was just paranoia. But then I saw the files. The names. People disappearing, being replaced. A pause. A shaky breath. They don't just kill people. They erase them. Completely. And then they use someone else to take their place, just long enough to cover it up. Aisha's hands tightened around the phone. My accident wasn't an accident. I found something I wasn't supposed to. And now they are coming for me. Another pause. Closer this time. If they say I'm dead, don't believe it. If they show you a body, it's not me. The recording crackled slightly. They are part of something bigger. Organized. Careful. Invisible. And once they mark you. A whisper. You're already gone. The recording ended. Aisha stood there, frozen. Her worst fear confirmed. Zara hadn't died. She had been targeted. Marked. Erased. And now, so was Aisha. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, a photo. Aisha opened it slowly. Her breath stopped. It was her, standing in the graveyard, digging, taken from behind. Below it, a single line. You're next. Aisha dropped the phone. Because now she understood the truth. This wasn't just a mystery. This was a system. A network that erased people, replaced them, and made sure no one ever noticed. And she had just stepped directly into it. Aisha didn't move for a long time. The photo still burned into her mind. Her, standing in the graveyard, digging, watched, not from far away, not from a random angle. The photo had been taken from behind a headstone, less than 10 feet away. Which meant one thing. Whoever took it was right there with her. Her breathing became shallow. They were there, she whispered. Watching. Waiting. And they didn't stop her. That was the part that terrified her the most. They let her dig. They wanted her to see the body. Aisha slowly picked up her phone again. Her fingers trembled as she opened the image once more. She zoomed in. Closer. Closer. And then, her heart stopped. There was a reflection. On the polished surface of a nearby gravestone. A distorted shape. A figure. Standing behind her. Watching. Aisha dropped the phone again. No, no. She hadn't been alone. Not for a second. Her mind raced. If they were that close, if they could follow her that easily, then there was no way this was random. This was controlled. Planned. And then a new thought hit her. Hard. How did they know where she would go? She hadn't told anyone. Not her parents. Not her friends. Not even herself, until that moment. Unless, her chest tightened. Unless someone was already watching her. From the beginning. Inside the house. Aisha slowly turned her head toward the hallway. The same hallway where she had heard the click earlier. The same hallway where Zara's room had been opened. Her heart began pounding again. Think, she whispered. Think. Zara's last message echoed again. Don't trust anyone. Not even family. Aisha felt sick. No. No, that couldn't be it. Her parents. Impossible. But then, something small. Something she hadn't noticed before. Her father's reaction at the hospital. Too calm. No panic. No anger. No urgency. Just acceptance. Her mother. Avoiding eye contact. Changing the subject. Refusing to talk about Zara's death in detail. Aisha's stomach twisted. No. But the doubt was already there. She turned and walked slowly toward the living room. Her parents were there. Sitting quietly. Waiting. That's when it hit her. Waiting. Not relaxing. Not talking. Just sitting. Like they were expecting something. Aisha stepped into the room. Both of them looked up at the same time. Too perfectly. Too in sync. Where were you? Her father asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. Aisha swallowed. I went out. Her mother smiled faintly. You shouldn't go out alone at night. Something about the way she said it didn't feel like concern. It felt like a warning. Aisha's heart pounded louder. She took a step back. I went to Zara's grave. Silence. For a split second. Something changed. Her father's eyes. A flicker. Gone as quickly as it appeared. There's nothing there, he said calmly. Aisha shook her head slowly. There's a body. Her voice cracked. But it's not Zara. Silence again. Longer this time. Her mother looked at her. And for the first time, there was no emotion. None. You shouldn't have done that, she said softly. Aisha's blood ran cold. What? Her father stood up slowly. Aisha. His voice was still calm, controlled. Some things are better left alone. Aisha stumbled backward. No, no, you don't understand. Zara is alive. She's been sending me messages. She told me everything. Her mother tilted her head slightly, almost curiously. Did she? That wasn't shock. That wasn't confusion. That was confirmation. Aisha's heart felt like it stopped. You know, she whispered. Neither of them answered. But they didn't deny it either. And that was enough. Aisha turned and ran. She didn't stop. Didn't look back. Out the door. Into the street. Her breath came in sharp bursts. Her mind screamed one thing over and over. Get away. Behind her. The front door didn't slam. Didn't open again. Because they didn't chase her. They didn't need to. Aisha didn't stop running until she reached the main road. Only then did she slow down, bending over, trying to breathe. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Her entire world had just shattered. Zara wasn't dead. The grave was fake. The body was a replacement. The symbol meant erasure. And now, her own parents knew about it. Her phone buzzed again. Aisha flinched violently. Another message. Unknown number. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it. 3 words. Phase 2 begins. Aisha's breath caught, because now she understood something even more terrifying. This wasn't just about Zara anymore. This wasn't just about being watched. This was a process, a system, and she had just crossed into the next stage. Above her, a streetlight flickered. For a moment, everything went dark, and when the light came back on, Aisha realized something chilling. She wasn't alone anymore. Across the street, a man stood still, watching her, and on his wrist, the same symbol. Aisha didn't wait. The moment she saw the man across the street, still, silent, watching, her instincts took over. She turned and ran. Not fast at first, controlled, because something inside her screamed. Don't panic. That's what they want. Her footsteps echoed against the empty road. The night felt heavier now, thicker, like the darkness itself was closing in. She didn't look back. Not yet, because she already knew what she'd see. The man wouldn't be chasing her. He wouldn't need to. That's how they worked. Slow, patient, inevitable. Aisha turned a corner sharply and ducked into a narrow alley. Her breath came in short bursts now. Her chest burned. She pressed herself against the wall, forcing herself to stay still. Then, slowly, she looked back. The street was empty. The man was gone. Aisha's stomach dropped. No, she whispered. That was worse. Much worse. Because if he wasn't following her, then he already knew where she was going. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Aisha frowned. That's not possible. Just minutes ago, everything was normal. Now, nothing. No calls. No internet. No way out. Her heart started pounding again. Phase 2 begins. The message echoed in her mind. What is Phase 2? She whispered. And then, her phone vibrated. 3:03 a.m. Another voice note. Aisha didn't hesitate. She pressed play immediately. Zara's voice came through. But this time, it wasn't just fear. It was urgency. Aisha, if you're hearing this, it means they've started the hunt. Aisha's breath caught. Phase 1 was observation. Watching. Studying. Learning everything about you. A pause. Phase 2 is isolation. Aisha's eyes widened. They cut you off. No signal. No help. No one to trust. They make sure you're completely alone. Another pause. Closer now. And then, they close in. The message ended. Aisha slowly lowered the phone. Her hands were shaking again. No signal, she whispered. No help. Her chest tightened. No one to trust. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind. Calm. Too calm. You shouldn't have done that. Aisha felt something break inside her. They knew. They had always known. And now, they weren't going to protect her. They were part of it. A sound echoed through the alley. Footsteps. Soft. Measured. Aisha froze. Her heart pounded so loudly it felt like it would give her away. The footsteps got closer. Not rushing. Not searching. Certain. A shadow stretched across the alley wall. Then another. Aisha's breath stopped. There wasn't just one. There were two. She backed away slowly. Her mind raced. Think. Think. Running blindly wouldn't work. They were already ahead. They had planned this. Every step. Then something clicked. Zara's words. They rely on patterns. Aisha looked around quickly. The alley split ahead into two paths. Left, dark, narrow, dead end maybe. Right, slightly wider, leading back toward the main road. The obvious choice was right. So Aisha went left. She ran as quietly as she could, slipping into the shadows. The footsteps behind her paused. Then, followed. Aisha's heart sank. They predicted that too. The alley narrowed further. Too narrow. Too enclosed. A trap. She turned around. And froze. They were already there. Not behind her. In front. Two men. Standing still. Watching her. Both with the same mark on their wrists. The triangle. Aisha stumbled backward. How? One of them spoke. Calm. Almost polite. You weren't supposed to run. Aisha's breath came fast. You replaced my sister, she said, her voice shaking. Silence. Then, the second man tilted his head slightly. Incorrect. Aisha frowned. What? The first man stepped forward. We don't replace people. A pause. A faint smile. We remove them. Aisha's blood ran cold. Your sister, the second man continued, saw something she shouldn't have. And now? Both of them looked at her. At the same time. So have you. Aisha's legs trembled. Her mind screamed for escape, but there was none. Please, she whispered. The first man shook his head slowly. This isn't personal. A pause. It's a process. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the ground. The screen lit up. Another voice note. 3:03 a.m. All three of them looked down at it. For the first time. Something changed. The men hesitated. Aisha saw it. And acted. She kicked the phone toward them. Then ran. This time, they chased. Footsteps exploded behind her. Fast. Precise. Aisha sprinted toward the end of the alley. And burst out onto the main road. Cars. Lights. Noise. For a brief moment, she was visible. Not hidden. Not isolated. She turned back. The men had stopped at the edge of the alley. They didn't follow. They just stood there. Watching. Waiting. Because they knew something she didn't. Aisha's phone buzzed again. Still on the ground behind her. Still playing. Zara's voice echoed faintly from the alley. Aisha. Phase 2 is survival. But Phase 3. A pause. Oh, his disappearance. Aisha stood frozen in the street. Because now she understood. She hadn't escaped. She had only moved. To the next stage. Aisha stood frozen in the middle of the road. Cars passed. People moved. Life continued around her like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. Because she finally understood something terrifying. Visibility didn't mean safety. She slowly turned her head back toward the alley. The two men were gone. No footsteps. No shadows. Like they had never been there. Aisha's chest tightened. They don't chase, she whispered. They wait. Her phone buzzed again. Still lying near the alley entrance. Still playing Zara's voice. Aisha hesitated. Every instinct told her not to go back. But she had no choice. Zara was the only one who knew what was happening. She walked slowly toward the alley. Step by step. Her heart pounded harder with every movement. The phone was still there. Screen glowing faintly. Voice note still paused mid-sentence. Aisha picked it up. Her fingers trembled as she pressed play again. Zara's voice returned, clearer this time. Phase 3 is disappearance. Aisha held her breath. It's the final stage. Once you reach it, they stop watching. A pause. Because by then, you're already gone. Aisha shook her head. No, I'm still here. But Zara continued. They erase your identity first. Records. Files. Digital traces. Then, your connections. People stop remembering you clearly. Conversations blur. Photos disappear. Aisha's heart skipped. And finally, Zara's voice dropped to a whisper. They take you. The message ended. Aisha stood there, frozen. Erase identity. Erase connections. Then, take the person. Her hands tightened around the phone. No. She needed proof. Something real. Something she could hold on to. She opened her contacts. Scrolled. Her best friend, Heine. Aisha pressed call. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then. Connected. Aisha. Relief flooded her chest. Heine, thank God. Listen, I need your help. Something's wrong. Zara. A pause. Zara. Heine repeated. Aisha blinked. Yes, my sister. Zara. Silence. Then. Aisha, you don't have a sister. Everything inside her stopped. What? You've always been an only child, Heine said slowly. Aisha's grip tightened on the phone. No, that's not true. You've met her. You've been to our house. Another pause. Longer this time. I've been to your house, yes. Heine's voice sounded uncertain now. But there was never anyone else there. Aisha's breath came in sharp, broken gasps. No, you're lying. You have to be lying. I'm not, Heine whispered. Aisha, are you okay? The call ended. Aisha stood there, shaking. They're erasing her. No. Worse. They had already erased her. And now, they were starting on Aisha. Her mind raced. Photos. She opened her gallery. Scrolled through hundreds of images. Family gatherings. Birthdays. Old memories. Zara was gone. Every photo that should have included her now showed empty spaces. Gaps. Like someone had been cut out of reality itself. Aisha dropped to her knees. No. Her entire body trembled. They're rewriting everything. She opened social media. Zara's profile. Gone. Messages. Deleted. Comments. Erased. Like she had never existed. Aisha clutched her head. This isn't possible. But it was happening. Right in front of her. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Unknown number. She opened it slowly. Phase 3 initiated. Aisha's chest tightened. No. Another message followed instantly. Subject, Aisha Khan. Status, active. Her hands went cold. Subject. Not person. Not name. Subject. Then. A third message. Estimated removal, 6 a.m. Aisha's breath stopped. She looked at the time. 4:12 a.m. Less than 2 hours. They're going to take me, she whispered. Her heart pounded violently. Think. Zara had known this would happen. That's why she left the voice notes. That's why she told her to check the grave. There had to be a way out. A weakness. Something they didn't control. Then something clicked. The voice notes. They kept coming. Even now. Even after Zara had been erased. Which meant Zara wasn't completely gone. Some part of her still existed. Somewhere outside their system. Aisha looked at her phone. 3:03 a.m. Every message came at that exact time. A pattern. A flaw. They can't stop it, she whispered. The realization hit her hard. The voice notes weren't random. They were a breach. Zara had found a way to exist outside the system. To send messages from somewhere they couldn't fully control. Which meant there was still hope. But only if Aisha could survive long enough. A car slowed down across the street. A black vehicle. Unmarked. Aisha's heart stopped. The door opened. A man stepped out. Then another. Both with the same symbol on their wrists. They had found her again. Aisha stood slowly. Her fear didn't disappear. But something else replaced it. Determination. I'm not going to disappear, she whispered. The men began walking toward her. Calm. Certain. Aisha took a step back. Then another. Her mind raced. She didn't need to outrun them. She needed to break the pattern. Because that was the only thing they couldn't predict. The men were getting closer now. Aisha turned. And ran straight into the one place she knew they wouldn't expect. Back toward the graveyard. Behind her. For the first time. The men hesitated. Because this time. She wasn't following their plan. And somewhere. At exactly 3:03 a.m. Zara's voice was still breaking through. Aisha ran until her lungs burned. The road blurred beneath her feet. The night air cut through her chest like glass. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Behind her, she could hear it now. Not footsteps. Something worse. Silence. They weren't chasing her. Not anymore. And that terrified her more than anything else. Because it meant one thing. They didn't need to. The graveyard gates loomed ahead. Dark. Still. Waiting. Aisha climbed over again, nearly slipping as her hands shook against the cold metal. The moment she dropped onto the other side, something changed. The air felt different. Heavier. Like she had stepped into a place. Outside of everything. She turned back briefly. The road beyond the gate looked distant. Muted. Like it didn't fully connect to where she was standing anymore. Aisha swallowed hard. This place, she whispered. Zara's voice echoed faintly in her mind. There are places they can't fully control. Aisha's heart skipped. This is one of them. She rushed toward Zara's grave. The soil was still disturbed from earlier. The coffin still partially exposed. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything felt different. Aisha dropped to her knees and stared at the open coffin again. The stranger's body lay motionless inside. But now, she looked closer. Really looked. Something was wrong. Not just the face. Not just the symbol. The body looked too still. Too perfect. Like it wasn't just dead. Like it had been placed. Aisha leaned in slowly. Her hands trembled as she reached toward the man's wrist. The symbol. The triangle with the line. Her fingers brushed against it. And instantly, her vision blurred. The world tilted. And then, she wasn't in the graveyard anymore. She was standing in a room. White. Cold. Rows of tables stretched in every direction. And on each table, a body. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Aisha's breath caught. What is this? She walked forward slowly. Each body looked normal. Peaceful. But then she noticed something. Every single one had the same mark. The symbol. Aisha's heart pounded violently. These are them, she whispered. The erased. A voice echoed behind her. Soft. Familiar. Aisha. She turned. Zara stood there. Alive. Aisha's eyes filled with tears instantly. Zara. She ran forward, but stopped just short. Something felt wrong. Zara looked the same, but not completely. Her movements were slower. Her eyes distant, like she wasn't fully there. You came back, Zara said softly. Aisha shook her head. I don't understand. Where are we? Zara looked around the room. This is what's left of us. Aisha's chest tightened. What do you mean? Zara stepped closer. They erase you from the world, but they can't erase everything. A pause. There are fragments. Echoes. Pieces that remain here. Aisha's voice trembled. So, you're not alive, Zara said quietly. The words hit like a, but not gone either. Aisha felt her knees weaken. No, there has to be a way out. You sent the messages. You found a way. Zara nodded slowly. I found a crack. A faint smile. 3:03 a.m. It's a gap in their system. A moment where control weakens. Aisha's heart raced. Then we can use it. We can escape. Zara's expression darkened slightly. It's not that simple. She gestured toward the rows of bodies. Everyone here tried. Aisha looked around again. And for the first time, she noticed the details. The scratches on the tables. The marks on the walls. Signs of struggle. Desperation. They all reached phase 3, Zara said. And none of them made it out. Aisha's chest tightened. Then why tell me to come here? Zara stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because you're different. Aisha frowned. How? Zara looked directly into her eyes. You broke the pattern. Aisha's mind raced. The alley. The grave. Running back instead of away. They predict everything, Zara continued. Except chaos. A pause. And you gave them something they couldn't predict. Suddenly, the room flickered. The lights dimmed. Zara's expression changed instantly. They found you. Aisha's heart stopped. What? The bodies around them began to tremble slightly. Not moving, but reacting. They can't fully enter this place, Zara said quickly. But they can pull you out. The floor beneath Aisha's feet shifted. Cracked. Aisha, listen to me. Zara grabbed her shoulders. You have one chance. When you wake up, run. Don't follow logic. Don't follow patterns. Be unpredictable. The room shook violently now. And whatever happens... Zara's voice broke slightly. Don't let them define you. Everything shattered. Aisha gasped, and found herself back in the graveyard, her hand still on the stranger's wrist, her body shaking violently. Footsteps echoed behind her. Real footsteps. She turned slowly. 3 men now, standing at the edge of the grave, watching her, and for the first time, they didn't look calm anymore. They looked concerned, because Aisha had just seen something she wasn't supposed to see. And now, the game had changed. The moment snapped back into place like a trap. Cold air, open grave, 3 men watching her. Aisha's chest rose and fell rapidly as she pulled her hand away from the stranger's wrist. Her mind was still inside that other place. That white room. Those bodies. Zara, be unpredictable. The words echoed louder than her fear. The 3 men didn't move immediately. That was new. Before, they had always been certain. Controlled. Now, they were waiting. Watching her more carefully than before. One of them stepped forward slowly. You've seen something, he said. Not a question. A statement. Aisha didn't respond. Her heart was racing, but her mind was changing. They are not perfect, she whispered to herself. They have limits. The second man spoke. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Aisha looked at him. For the first time, she didn't see control. She saw tension. Harder for who? She asked quietly. Silence. That was her answer. Zara was right. They relied on patterns. Predictable behavior. Logical reactions. Fate run. Isolation panic. Capture compliance. Aisha straightened slowly. Her fear didn't disappear. But she stopped letting it control her. You think you understand everything, she said. The men watched her carefully now. You think people react the same way every time. Another step forward from the first man. This is your final stage. There is no outcome where you leave. Aisha tilted her head slightly. Then why are you still talking? Silence again. He hadn't expected that. Aisha's pulse steadied just a little. They're adjusting, she thought. They're trying to figure me out again. Good. That meant she was doing something right. Suddenly, she did the one thing they weren't expecting. She laughed. It wasn't loud. Not hysterical. Just wrong. The men froze. You're too late, Aisha said softly. What do you mean? The second man asked. Aisha smiled faintly. I've already disappeared. For the first time, all 3 of them reacted. A shift. A flicker. Because that wasn't part of their system. Aisha stepped backward. Not away from them. Into the grave. The men moved instantly. But Aisha dropped down into the open coffin before they could reach her. Her hand found the stranger's wrist again. The symbol. Her vision blurred instantly. The graveyard vanished. The white room returned. But this time, it wasn't stable. The walls flickered. The bodies trembled. And Zara was already there. You came back, she said, this time faster, sharper. They are trying to pull me, Aisha said quickly. Zara nodded. I know. The room shook violently. Cracks spread across the floor like fractures in glass. They've never pushed this hard before, Zara said. Aisha's heart pounded. That means they're afraid. Zara looked at her, really looked this time. And for the first time, there was hope. You're breaking it, she whispered. Aisha turned slowly, looking at the rows of bodies again. They're all stuck, she said. Zara nodded. They followed the same path. Tried to escape the same way. Aisha's mind raced. Patterns. Always patterns. So we don't escape the way they expect, Aisha said. Zara frowned slightly. What are you thinking? Aisha took a slow breath. If they erase people by removing them from reality. A pause. Then we don't go back. Zara's expression shifted. You mean? We stay here, Aisha said. The room trembled violently. Zara shook her head quickly. No one has ever done that, This place isn't stable. It's not meant to hold consciousness forever. Aisha looked around again. At the bodies. At the cracks. Neither is their system, she said. The shaking intensified. A voice echoed through the room. Not Zara's. Not human. Return the subject. Aisha froze. Zara's face went pale. They're inside now. The walls began to distort. Shadows stretched unnaturally. They are trying to collapse this space, Zara said quickly. Aisha's heart pounded. Then we collapse it first. Zara stared at her. You don't know what that will do. Aisha met her gaze. No. A pause. But they don't either. For a split second, everything stopped. Then Aisha grabbed Zara's hand and stepped forward, straight into the nearest crack in the floor. The world shattered. Not like before. This time, it didn't pull them apart. It pulled everything apart. The white room collapsed. The bodies vanished. The walls broke into nothing. The voice screamed. Error, system failure. And then, silence. Aisha opened her eyes. She was lying on the ground. The graveyard. Dawn was breaking. Soft light stretched across the sky. The grave in front of her was empty. No coffin. No body. Nothing. Aisha sat up slowly. Her head spun. Her body ached. She looked around. The three men. Gone. Completely gone. Like they had never been there. Aisha's heart pounded softly now. Not with panic. But with something else. Confusion. Did I win? She whispered. Her phone lay beside her. Screen cracked. Still working. It buzzed once. 3:03 a.m. Aisha froze. One final voice note. She pressed play slowly. Zara's voice came through. Faint. Distant. You did it. A pause. But listen carefully. Static crept in. They're not gone. The signal broke. They had just reset. The message cut. Aisha stared at the phone. Because deep down, she already understood. She hadn't destroyed the system. She had broken it. Temporarily. And somewhere, it was already rebuilding. Waiting. For the next name. Oh, the same one. For a moment, everything felt normal. Too normal. The kind of normal that doesn't belong after something like that. The sky was lightening. Birds were beginning to chirp. The world continued. Like nothing had happened. Aisha stood slowly. Her body ached, but she was alive. Still here. Still real. She looked down at the grave again. Empty. No coffin. No body. No sign that anything had ever been buried there. They reset it, she whispered. Zara's last words echoed in her mind. They're not gone, they're just reset. Aisha swallowed hard. That meant the system was still active. Still functioning. Just damaged. And she had done that. Her phone buzzed. Aisha flinched instinctively. Then slowly looked down. No unknown number this time. No threat. Just no service. Aisha frowned. That again. But something felt different now. Before, the lack of signal had been forced. Controlled. Now, it felt broken. Unstable. She turned and walked toward the graveyard gate. This time, she didn't feel watched. Not directly. But that didn't mean she wasn't. Outside, the world looked exactly the same. Cars. People. Movement. Normal. Too normal. Aisha stepped onto the street. And immediately felt it. A shift. Not in the world. In people. A man walking past her slowed slightly. Looked at her. Then kept walking. A woman across the road turned her head. Stared for a second too long. A child stopped mid-step. And pointed. Aisha's chest tightened. What? She looked down at herself. Nothing was wrong. No blood. No visible injury. But the way people were looking at her. It wasn't normal curiosity. It was recognition. Like they knew something about her. That she didn't. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message. Unknown number. Aisha hesitated. Then opened it. Anomaly detected. Her heart skipped. Another message appeared instantly. Subject failed to erase. Aisha's breath caught. Then, a third message. Reclassification in progress. Aisha's hands began to shake. No. Another line appeared. Slower this time. New status, undefined. Aisha stared at the screen. Undefined. Not active. Not removed. Something else. A cold realization settled in her chest. I broke their system, she whispered. And now, they don't know what I am. A car pulled up suddenly beside her. Black. Unmarked. Aisha's heart stopped. The window rolled down slowly. A man inside looked at her. No emotion. No hesitation. But something was different. He wasn't calm. He was studying her. You shouldn't exist, he said quietly. Aisha didn't respond. The man tilted his head slightly, like he was trying to understand something impossible. You reached phase 3, he continued. A pause. And returned. Aisha's pulse steadied slightly. They're confused, she realized. Good. Where is my sister? Aisha asked. The man didn't answer immediately. Then, she is no longer within system parameters. Aisha's chest tightened. What does that mean? The man's eyes flickered, just slightly. It means, for the first time, he hesitated. We cannot access her. Aisha's heart pounded. Zara had escaped. Not fully, but enough. The man opened the car door slowly. Stepped out. 2 more vehicles appeared behind him. More men, all watching her. But none of them moved closer. They weren't hunting her anymore. They were observing. You've become a problem, the first man said. Aisha let out a small, shaky breath. Good. The man studied her carefully, then said something that made her blood run cold. We don't remove problems. A pause. We study them. Aisha's stomach twisted. That was worse. Much worse. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Containment protocol pending. Aisha clenched her fists. No. She looked around quickly. People still watching. Cars still passing. But now she saw it clearly. The pattern. Small movements. Subtle positioning. They were closing in again. Different approach. Same system. Aisha took a slow step back. Then another. Her mind raced. She couldn't fight them directly. Couldn't outrun them forever. But she didn't need to. She just needed to stay unpredictable. The man took a step toward her. Come with us. Aisha smiled faintly. Or what? A pause. We adapt, he said. Aisha's heart pounded. So do I, she replied. And then, she did the one thing they weren't expecting. She walked. Straight into the crowd. Not running. Not hiding. Blending. The men froze. Because for the first time, they couldn't isolate her. Couldn't track her cleanly. She had become noise. Unpredictable. Undefined. Aisha disappeared into the moving crowd. And for the first time since this began, she wasn't being hunted. She was being avoided. Because now, she wasn't just a target. She was something worse. A flaw in the system. And flaws spread. The crowd swallowed Aisha whole. That was the only way she could describe it. Bodies moving. Voices overlapping. Life continuing as if nothing had ever tried to erase her from it. But Aisha knew better now. Nothing was normal anymore. Not the world. Not people. Not even reality. She walked without direction. No running. No panic. Just movement. Because she understood something important now. If they were studying her, then stillness was danger. Predictability was death. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. Aisha didn't check it immediately. She already knew what it would say. Still, she looked. Undefined subject detected. Then another message followed instantly. All units reassign focus. Aisha exhaled slowly. So I'm not the target anymore, she whispered. I'm the priority. That changed everything. She stepped into a narrow side street, quieter than the main road. A reflection appeared in a shop window as she passed. And for a split second, she didn't recognize herself. Not because she looked different, but because of what she represented now. Something between erased and existing. Between data and error. Between victim and anomaly. A glitch, she murmured. Zara's words came back again. Be unpredictable. Aisha stopped walking. Because she finally understood. That wasn't just advice. It was survival logic. Behind her, somewhere in the city, black vehicles moved again. but not toward her. Around her. Recalculating. Repositioning. They were no longer chasing. They were enclosing. Aisha looked up at the sky. Dawn had fully arrived now. Soft light. Warm. Almost peaceful. Almost cruel. Her phone vibrated again. But this time, the message wasn't text. It was audio. Aisha hesitated. Then pressed play. Zara's voice came through, faint, unstable, like it was breaking through layers of interference. Aisha. A pause. If you're hearing this, it means you're no longer inside their full control. Aisha's breath caught. They're going to try something new. Not removal. Not capture. Another pause. They're going to rewrite you. Aisha's heart stopped. Rewrite? She whispered. Zara's voice continued. If they can't erase you, they'll turn you into something that fits. Aisha shook her head slowly. No. And if that happens, Zara's voice softened. You'll still be you, but only in fragments. The audio distorted sharply. And Aisha. A pause. If you want to stop them. Static. Don't run. The message cut out. Aisha stood still. Don't run. That was new. Everything before had been escape. Survival. Chaos. But now, something else was being asked of her. A car stopped at the end of the street. Then another. Then another. Not surrounding her. Not yet. Just forming a perimeter. Controlled. Precise. Aisha took a slow breath. If they rewrite me, she whispered, then I stop being a person. She looked at her reflection again. This time, she didn't look away. I won't become their system. A pause. I'll become its error. She stepped forward, not away from them, toward them. The nearest black vehicle door opened. A man stepped out, same symbol on his wrist. But his expression was different now. Not calm, not controlled, uncertain. You should not be walking toward us, he said. Aisha nodded slightly. I know. Another step forward. You are no longer classified, he continued. A pause. We don't know what you are. Aisha smiled faintly. Good. That single word changed something. She saw it in his eyes. A flicker. System recalculating. Uncertainty increasing. Behind him, more men stepped out of vehicles. But none of them advanced. Because for the first time, they didn't have a protocol for this. Aisha took another step forward, then another. I was never your subject, she said quietly. A pause. I was your mistake. The air shifted. Something subtle. Something structural. The men exchanged looks. For the first time. Not synchronized. Not uniform. The system was fracturing again. Aisha felt it. Not fear. Not panic. Power. Not theirs. Not hers. Something in between. And then, her phone buzzed one last time. Final protocol, observe. Aisha looked down at it, then up at them. You want to observe me? She asked softly. A pause. Then watch closely. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. And when she opened them, she didn't run. Didn't fight. Didn't freeze. She simply changed direction. Randomly. Without logic. Without pattern. The men reacted instantly. Too slowly. Too late. Because there was no system to predict it anymore. Aisha walked through them. Not around. Not away. Through. And for a moment, they couldn't decide what she was. Human. Subject. Error. That hesitation was everything. When they finally moved again, she was already gone into the crowd. Not hiding. Not escaping. Existing incorrectly. And that was the point. Because the system couldn't erase what it couldn't define. And Aisha Khan had stopped being definable. Later that night, somewhere deep inside the system's core, an alert triggered. Not a failure. Not an error. Something worse. Unknown entity spread detected. And beneath it, a final line. Subject, Aisha Khan. Status, uncontainable. Back in the city, Aisha walked alone under streetlights. No longer running. No longer hiding. Just moving. And somewhere far behind her, the system that once erased people was learning something new. That some things don't disappear. They evolve. And sometimes, they become the thing watching back. The man on the security camera had no face, but every night, he stood closer to her bedroom door. The first time Mihak saw him, she thought it was a glitch, a distortion, a trick of the camera, because no human being should look like that. It was 2:41 a.m. when her phone buzzed with a notification from the home security app. Motion detected, hallway camera. Mihak groaned, half asleep. Probably the cat again. Or maybe her younger brother sneaking into the kitchen. She rolled over, unlocked her phone, and opened the app. The footage loaded slowly. Grainy. Black and white. The hallway outside her bedroom stretched across the screen. Empty. Still. Then, movement. At the far end of the corridor, a figure stepped into view. Mihak frowned. That's not possible. Everyone was asleep. Her parents, her brother, all in their rooms. The figure moved slowly. Too slowly. Like it wasn't walking, but learning how to. Mihak leaned closer to the screen. Her breath caught. The man had no face. Not blurred. Not shadowed. Gone. Where there should have been eyes. Nothing. Where there should have been a mouth. Nothing. Just smooth, featureless skin. Mihak's fingers froze on the phone. No. The figure turned slightly. As if it knew she was watching. The video cut. Mihak sat up instantly. Her heart was pounding now. That's not real, she whispered. She checked the timestamp again. 2:41 a.m. Just seconds ago. Her eyes drifted slowly toward her bedroom door. Closed. But suddenly, it didn't feel safe anymore. She got out of bed slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. The floor creaked softly beneath her feet. Mom, she called quietly. No answer. Ali. Nothing. The house was silent. Too silent. Mihak reached the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. Her mind screamed. Don't open it. But she had to know. Slowly, she turned the handle. The door creaked open. The hallway was empty. No figure. No movement. Mihak let out a shaky breath. See? Just a glitch. She stepped out into the hallway. The air felt colder here. She looked toward the camera mounted in the corner. It blinked softly. Recording. Mihak frowned. Something about it felt wrong. Then, her phone buzzed again. Another notification. Motion detected. Bedroom door camera. Mihak's blood ran cold. She slowly looked back at her room. Her door. Still open. Nothing there. Her hands trembled as she lifted her phone. Opened the app again. The new footage loaded. This time, the camera was facing her bedroom door. And standing right in front of it was the same figure. The faceless man. But this time, he was closer. Much closer. Mihak's breath stopped. Because in the footage, the man slowly tilted his head and began walking toward the camera. The video ended. Mihak dropped the phone because now she understood something terrifying. The footage she had just seen wasn't from earlier. It was happening right now, behind her. Mihak didn't turn around. She couldn't. Her body locked in place, every muscle frozen between instinct and terror. Behind her, the hallway stretched into silence. But now she knew. Silence didn't mean empty. Her phone lay on the floor, screen still glowing faintly. The last frame of the footage lingered in her mind. The faceless man, walking toward the camera, toward her door, which meant he had been standing right behind her. A cold shiver crawled down her spine. Slowly, painfully slowly, Mihak bent down and picked up her phone. Her hands trembled so badly she nearly dropped it again. No, think, she whispered. Running blindly wouldn't help. Screaming might make it worse. She needed to understand what she was dealing with. Carefully, she opened the security app again. The hallway camera. Live feed. She tapped it. The video loaded. Grainy. Black and white. The hallway was empty. Mihak's breath hitched. What? She looked up from her phone, then back at the screen. Nothing. No figure. No movement. Her heart pounded harder. That's not possible. I just saw him. Her fingers moved quickly now. Scrolling. Back through the footage history. 2:41 a.m. hallway camera. She opened it again. The same video played. The same figure stepping into view. The same slow, unnatural movement. But this time, She didn't focus on him. She focused on the background, the walls, the doors, the small details. And that's when she noticed it. Something subtle, something wrong. Her bedroom door was slightly open. Mihak's breath stopped. But when she had checked earlier, it had been closed, which meant this footage wasn't from tonight. Her fingers shook as she checked the timestamp again. 2:41 a.m. But now, it felt wrong. Edited. She scrolled further back. 2:40 a.m. 2:39 a.m. 2:38 a.m. More clips. More motion alerts. Mihak opened one from 2:12 a.m. The hallway appeared again. Empty at first. Then, a shadow shifted near the far wall. The faceless man stepped out. Closer this time. Closer than before. Mihak's grip tightened on the phone. No. She opened another clip. 1:56 a.m. This time, he was standing halfway down the hallway. Not moving. Just there. Watching. Another clip. 1:33 a.m. He was at the very end of the corridor. Barely visible. Another. 1:10 a.m. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Mihak's heart pounded violently. He's been moving, slowly, closer. Her breathing became uneven. He didn't just appear tonight. A realization hit her like a... He's been here for hours. Her hands moved faster now. Scrolling further back. Past midnight. 11:47 p.m. 10:22 p.m. More clips. More empty hallways. Until she found it. 9:03 p.m. The earliest motion alert of the night. She opened it. The footage loaded. The hallway was empty. Then, the front door opened. Mihak's blood ran cold. No one was there. No visible person. But the door slowly creaked open on its own. And then, after a few seconds, it closed. Mihak dropped the phone onto the bed behind her. Her chest heaved. No, no, no. He didn't come from inside the house. He came from outside. And no one saw him enter. A sound echoed from down the hallway. A soft tap. Mihak froze. Another tap. Closer this time. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned everything else out. She slowly turned her head. The hallway was still empty. But the sound, it wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from her room. Mihak's breath stopped. She turned slowly toward her bed. Her phone lay there, screen still glowing. And behind it, something moved. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. A shape. Standing. Watching her. Mihak's entire body went cold. Because now she understood something even worse than before. The cameras weren't warning her. They were showing her what was already too late to escape. And the faceless man was no longer in the hallway. He was already inside her room. Mihak couldn't breathe. Her room felt smaller. The air thinner. Like something invisible was pressing in from all sides. Behind her, near the bed, that shape had moved. She was sure of it. But when she blinked, it was gone. Nothing there. Just her bed. Her phone. Her blanket. No, she whispered. Her voice trembled. I saw it. I know I saw it. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. This didn't make sense. First the hallway. Then the footage. Then the room. It was getting closer. No, it was already here. A sudden realization snapped through her mind like lightning. Her family. Mom. Her voice cracked. Dad. If this thing was inside the house, then they were in danger too. Or worse, they already knew. Mihak didn't think anymore. She ran. Out of her room. Into the hallway. Her footsteps echoed loudly now, too loud in the silence. She reached her parents' bedroom door and slammed it open. Mom. Dad. Wake up. Her voice stopped. The room was empty. The bed. Perfectly made. No signs of sleep. No signs of anyone being there. Mihak's stomach dropped. No. She backed away slowly. Her breathing quick, uneven. This isn't real. She turned and ran to her brother's room. Ali. She threw the door open. Empty. The room looked wrong. Not just empty. Unused. Like no one had lived there in a long time. The posters were gone. The bed was stripped. Dust had settled on the desk. Mihak stumbled backward. No, No, he was just here. We had dinner together. We. Her voice broke. Her mind scrambled desperately for something solid. A memory. A moment. Proof. But something was happening. Something horrible. The memories felt blurry, like trying to recall a dream after waking up. Her brother's face. She couldn't picture it clearly. Her mother's voice. Fading. Her father's laugh. Gone. No. Mihak screamed. She grabbed her head, fingers digging into her hair. They are real. They have to be real. But the house around her said otherwise. Silent. Empty. Like she had always been alone. Her phone buzzed. Mihak flinched violently. Another notification. Motion detected. Living room camera. Her hands shook as she opened it. The footage loaded. The living room appeared. Dak. Still. Then. Movement. The faceless man stepped into view. This time, there was no distance. No slow approach. He was already close. Standing in the center of the room. Mihak stared at the screen, her breath shallow. Then, something impossible happened. The man turned his head and looked directly at the camera. Even without a face. She knew. He was looking at her. And then, the footage glitched. For a single frame. Just one. Something appeared where his face should have been. Not features. Not eyes or mouth. But something worse. A reflection. Mihak dropped the phone. Because in that split second, she had seen it clearly. The face was her own. Her breathing became erratic. No, that's not possible. But deep down, she already understood. This thing, it didn't just enter houses. It didn't just appear on cameras. It erased people. Just like her family. And then, it replaced them. With something that looked familiar. Something that felt close. Until it was too late. A sound came from behind her. A soft footstep. Mihak froze. Slowly, she turned around. The hallway stretched behind her. Dak. Empty. But not silent. Another step. Closer. Mihak's heart pounded violently. I know you're there, she whispered. Silence. Then, a voice. Her own voice. Soft. Right behind her ear. You've always been alone. Mihak screamed and spun around. But there was nothing there. Nothing. Except the growing, crushing realization. That maybe, she hadn't lost her family. Maybe they had never existed at all. And the faceless man wasn't inside her house. He was her house. Mihak didn't scream again. Not because she wasn't afraid. But because something inside her had begun to understand. Fear wasn't helping anymore. Her breathing slowly steadied. The hallway stretched in front of her. Empty. But now she knew better than to trust what she saw. You've always been alone. Her own voice echoed in her mind. Not imagined. Not a memory. Something else. No, she whispered. I remember them. But even as she said it, the memories felt weaker. Her mother's face. Blurry. Her brother's voice. Distant. Her father's presence. Like something she had read about, not lived. Mihak clenched her fists. This is wrong. This is not real. She needed proof. Something outside her mind. Something the thing couldn't change. Her phone. With shaking hands, she opened it again. Not the camera app this time. Something deeper. Her gallery. Photos loaded slowly. Hundreds of them. Birthdays. Family dinners. Selfies. She scrolled quickly. Faster. Desperate. There, she whispered. A photo from last week. Dinner table. Her parents sitting across from her. Her brother laughing beside her. Proof. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The image expanded. Clear. Sharp. Mihak's breath stopped. The chairs were empty. Plates sat on the table. Food half served. Glasses filled. But no people. No family. Just Mihak. Sitting alone. No. Her voice cracked. She scrolled to another photo. Birthday cake. Candles lit. She remembered making a wish. Her parents cheering. Her brother clapping. The photo opened. The cake was there. The candles were lit. But the room was empty. No one behind the camera. No one around her. Just Mihak. Smiling. At nothing. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. This isn't real. This isn't real. She dropped the phone onto the floor. But it didn't stop. The screen lit up again. A new notification. Memory sync updated. Mihak stared at it. Then another message appeared. Identity verification in progress. Her heart pounded violently. No, stop. She grabbed the phone again. Opened her contacts. Names filled the screen. Friends. Classmates. Relatives. She tapped one. Call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then. Connected. Hello. Mihak's breath rushed out. Hi, yes, this is Mihak. Listen, I need you to tell me something. My family, my parents, my brother. A pause. I'm sorry, who is this? Mihak froze. It's me. Mihak. Silence. I don't know anyone by that name. The call ended. The phone slipped from her hand again. Her chest tightened painfully. They're erasing me. Not just her family. Not just her past. Her. Her breathing became shallow. Her vision blurred. No. I'm still here. I exist. But even that thought felt uncertain. What if she didn't? What if the memories were fake? What if she had never been real? A sudden sound came from the living room. A chair scraping across the floor. Mihak froze. Slowly, she turned toward the sound. The living room doorway stood open. Dark. Still. But now, there was something there. A silhouette. Standing in the doorway. Tall. Still. The faceless man. He didn't move. Didn't step forward. He just stood there. Watching her. Mihak's heart pounded violently. Why? She whispered. The figure tilted its head slightly. And then, for the first time, it spoke. Not with her voice. Not with any voice she recognized. Something hollow. Empty. You are incomplete. Mihak's breath hitched. What does that mean? A pause. Then, you were created, but not finished. The words hit her like a... No. The figure took a slow step forward. You were given memories. Another step. Connections. Another. A life. Mihak backed away slowly. But none of it belongs to you. Her mind spun violently. Created? Given a life? No, that's not true. I lived it. I remember it. The figure stopped just outside the doorway, and then said something that shattered everything she believed. Then why does no one else? Silence fell. Heavy. Crushing. Mihak's legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed to the floor. Her mind searched desperately for something real. Something solid. But every memory now felt borrowed. Like it had been placed inside her. Designed. And now, being taken back. The figure stepped closer. You are not being erased, it said calmly. A pause. You are being corrected. Mihak's vision blurred completely. Because now, she didn't know what was worse. Losing everything she had. Or realizing, it was never hers to begin with. Mihak couldn't move. Not because she was being held. Not because something was physically stopping her. But because her mind had reached a breaking point. You were created, but not finished. The words echoed over and over again. Louder than her heartbeat. Louder than her thoughts. No, she whispered weakly. Her fingers pressed into the floor as if trying to anchor herself to something real. I'm real. I'm here. I'm an anomaly. The faceless man's voice cut through her sentence. Flat. Certain. Mihak looked up slowly. He stood just a few steps away now. Still no face. Still no features. And yet, she felt watched. Completely. What are you? She asked, her voice shaking. A pause. Then, I am a correction. The air seemed to tighten around her. A process, he continued, designed to identify and resolve inconsistencies. Inconsistencies, Mihak repeated. Her throat felt dry. You mean, me? Yes. The answer came instantly. No hesitation. No doubt. Mihak's stomach twisted. Why? The figure tilted its head slightly. You were not meant to persist. Her breath caught. You were part of a controlled structure. Another step closer. A simulated identity framework. Mihak's mind struggled to keep up. What does that even mean? She shouted, her voice breaking. It means, the faceless man said calmly. You were given a life that was never supposed to continue. Silence. The words settled into her like something heavy. Unavoidable. You're lying, she whispered. But even as she said it, she remembered the photos, the empty rooms, the disappearing voices. Her life had cracks in it, and now, they were widening. What was I supposed to be? She asked, her voice quieter now. The faceless man stopped moving. You were a placeholder. Mihak blinked. A temporary construct used to stabilize memory environments. Her head spun. No, I'm a person. You were designed to feel like one. Her chest tightened painfully. You had memories, he continued. Relationships. Emotional anchors. A pause. But none of them were permanent. Mihak's eyes filled with tears. My family. Fabricated. My friends. Linked to external data patterns. Not real connections. My life. A temporary illusion. The words shattered something inside her. Tears streamed down her face, but she barely felt them. Then why do I remember it all? She whispered. The faceless man answered immediately. Because you were programmed to. Mihak shook her head violently. No, that's not enough. Feelings don't just come from programming. I felt everything. I lived it. The figure stood still, then said something unexpected. Yes. Mihak froze. That is why you are still here. Her breath caught. What? The faceless man stepped closer. You were not meant to develop independent continuity. A pause. But you did. Mihak stared at him. I don't understand. You continued, he said simply. Beyond your assigned limits. Her heart pounded. You broke the structure. Silence filled the room again. This time, different. Not just fear. Realization. I wasn't supposed to exist this long, Mihak whispered. No. And now you're here to fix it. Yes. The finality of that answer was suffocating. How? She asked. The faceless man raised his hand slowly. And for the first time, something appeared in it. Not an object. Not something physical. A distortion. Like space itself bending slightly. A reset, he said. Mihak's heart slammed violently. No. All memory structures will collapse. Another step forward, your identity will be removed. Another, continuity will end. Mihak pushed herself backward across the floor. No, I don't want to disappear. You were never meant to remain. Her back hit the wall. No more space. No more distance. The faceless man stood over her now. Close. Too close. Mihak's breathing became frantic. There has to be another way. A pause. There is not. Her hands trembled violently. But I'm still here, she cried. I feel everything. I think. I remember. I exist. For the first time, the faceless man didn't respond immediately. A small pause. A flicker. Then, you are not supposed to. Something changed in that moment. Not in him. In her. Mihak's breathing slowed. Her fear didn't disappear. But it shifted. Turned into something else. Something stronger. If I wasn't supposed to, she whispered slowly, then why do I still feel real? Silence. The faceless man didn't answer. And that was her answer. Mihak slowly pushed herself up from the floor. Her legs trembled. But she stood, facing him. I don't care what I was meant to be, she said quietly. I'm here now. A pause. And I'm not going anywhere. The distortion in his hand flickered slightly. The room around them shifted. Walls glitching. Air warping. You are resisting correction, he said. Mihak nodded. Yes. Another pause. Then, for the first time, the system hesitated. And Mihak realized something critical. It didn't know how to fix something. That refused to follow the rules. The correction wasn't failing because it was weak. It was failing because she was no longer predictable. And in that moment, Mihak understood exactly what she had become. Not a mistake. Not a placeholder. Something else. Something the system had never planned for. The room was breaking. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Physically. The walls around Mihak flickered like a corrupted screen. Parts of the ceiling stretched, then snapped back into place. The air itself felt unstable. like it didn't fully exist anymore. The faceless man stood in front of her, hands still raised, the distortion pulsing faintly in his grasp. But something had changed. The distortion wasn't stable either. It trembled. "You are destabilizing the structure," he said. His voice remained calm. But beneath it, there was strain. Mihak took a slow breath. "You said I wasn't supposed to exist this long." A step forward, her legs still weak, but holding. "So what happens now?" A pause. Then, for the first time, he answered with something that wasn't absolute. "You should not be asking that." Mihak's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's not an answer." The distortion in his hand pulsed again. Stronger this time. The walls around them cracked, thin lines spreading like fractures in glass. "You are interfering with correction protocols," he said. Another step forward. "Closer now." "Then stop correcting me," Mihak replied. Silence. The system didn't know how to respond to that. And Mihak saw it clearly now. This thing, this correction. It wasn't human. But it wasn't all-powerful either. It followed rules. Strict ones. And she had stepped outside them. "What happens to the ones you fix?" she asked. A pause. "They are removed." "No," Mihak said firmly. "That's not what I asked." Another pause. Longer this time. The distortion flickered violently. "Answer me," she demanded. The faceless man tilted his head slightly. Then, something shifted. The room around them changed. Not collapsing, transforming. The walls dissolved into something else. Darkness. Endless. And within that darkness, shapes. Hundreds. Thousands. Faint outlines of rooms. Houses. Streets. Broken pieces of places. Floating. Disconnected. Mihak's breath caught. "What is this?" The faceless man lowered his hand slightly. "This is where failed structures go." A chill ran through her entire body. Failed realities. Yes. She stepped forward slowly, looking closer at the fragments. A child's bedroom, half gone. A street corner, cut off mid-road. A dining table, floating in nothing. Each piece, frozen, abandoned. "These were lives," she whispered. "Temporary constructs," he corrected. Mihak's chest tightened. "They felt real," she said quietly. "They were designed to." She clenched her fists. "And when they stopped working?" A pause. "You threw them away." No response. That silence said everything. Her heart pounded harder now. But not from fear. From anger. "So that's what I am?" she asked. "Something broken you forgot to delete." "You are not forgotten," he said. A pause. "You are active." Mihak let out a short, bitter laugh. "Lucky me." She looked around again. At the broken pieces. The abandoned worlds. "This is what you want to do to me," she said quietly. "Remove me. Drop me here. Let me fade." "Yes." The simplicity of the answer made her stomach twist. "No," she said. The word echoed strangely in the empty space. The faceless man didn't move. "No." Mihak turned back to him. "I'm not going there. You do not have a choice." Her eyes locked onto where his face should have been. "Then make me." Silence. The distortion in his hand flared violently. The broken reality around them began to collapse inward. Fragments pulling closer. Spinning. "You are forcing escalation," he said. Mihak stood her ground. "Good." The darkness surged. The fragments began to merge, twisting into something unstable. A vortex of broken places. "You cannot survive outside defined structure," he warned. Mihak's voice was steady now. "Then I'll define my own." The moment those words left her mouth, something snapped. Not in the world. In the system. The distortion in his hand flickered wildly. Then, split. A sharp crack echoed through the void. The fragments around them stopped moving. Everything froze. The faceless man stood still. For the first time. Completely still. "Invalid response," he said. But his voice glitched. Repeated. Laid over itself. "Invalid, invalid, invalid." Mihak stepped forward. Slow. Deliberate. "You don't know what to do with me anymore," she said. No answer. The system was breaking again. Because she had done something none of the others had. She didn't try to escape. She didn't accept deletion. She chose something else. She chose to exist. On her own terms. The darkness around them began to crack, light bleeding through from somewhere beyond. The fragments trembled, and for the first time, they started to move. Not toward collapse, toward change. Mihak looked at them, at the broken pieces of other lives, and realized something terrifying. They weren't gone. They were waiting. Mihak. The voice came from everywhere. Not the faceless man. Something deeper. You are not supposed to rebuild. She smiled faintly. Watch me. The light didn't come from above. It came from within the cracks. Thin lines of brightness slicing through the dark void of broken realities. Like something on the other side, trying to get in. Or get out. Mihak stood at the center of it all, breathing slowly. Steady now. Not afraid. Not anymore. Around her, the fragments trembled. The abandoned pieces of lives. Rooms, streets, memories. They weren't still anymore. They were reacting. To her. She's changing the structure. The voice wasn't the faceless man. It wasn't human at all. It came from everywhere. From the cracks. From the darkness. From the space between everything. Mihak turned slowly. Who said that? No answer. But something moved. Far beyond the floating fragments. Deeper into the void. A shape. Not like the faceless man. Not human-shaped. Larger. Wider. Like a presence. Without form. Mihak felt it before she could understand it. A pressure. A weight on her chest. You were not meant to reach this layer. The voice again. Closer now. Mihak's eyes narrowed. And yet, here I am. Silence. Then, the fragments around her shifted again. But this time, not because of her. They moved away. Like something was coming through. The darkness bent inward. And slowly, something emerged. It didn't step forward. It didn't walk. It unfolded. Like reality itself was making space for it. Mihak's breath slowed. Not from calm. From something deeper. Instinct. Danger. What are you? She asked quietly. The presence paused. Then answered. I am what remains when correction fails. A chill ran through her entire body. The faceless man is part of the system, Mihak said slowly. Yes. And you? A pause. Longer this time. I am the system observing itself. That answer didn't make sense. And yet, it did. Mihak's heart pounded softly now. You're watching me. Yes. Why? Another pause. Because you are not behaving correctly. Mihak let out a quiet breath. I've heard that before. The presence didn't react, but the fragments around them trembled harder now. You are causing instability across multiple structures, it continued. Your actions are spreading. Mihak frowned slightly. Spreading. The darkness shifted again. And suddenly, images flickered around her. Not memories. Not her memories. Other places. Other realities. A girl in a classroom, pausing mid-sentence, looking around like something wasn't right. A man walking down a street, stopping, turning back, breaking a pattern. A child, refusing to respond to something unseen. Mihak's breath caught. They're changing, she whispered. Yes. Her chest tightened. Because of me. Yes. Silence fell. And suddenly, the weight of it hit her. This wasn't just about her anymore. She wasn't just an anomaly. She was a signal. Something spreading through the system. Teaching others to break. The presence shifted again. This is not acceptable. Mihak looked up. Of course it's not. The darkness pulsed. You are interfering with controlled environments. Good. You are creating unpredictable outcomes. Better. A pause. For the first time, the presence didn't respond immediately. And Mihak realized something terrifying. It wasn't just watching. It was thinking. Adjusting. Learning. You are no longer an isolated anomaly, it said slowly. You are a variable. Mihak tilted her head slightly. And what do you do with variables? The answer came without hesitation. We eliminate them. The space around her shifted violently. The fragments began to collapse inward again, but faster this time. More aggressively. Not a correction. A purge. The faceless man reappeared beside her. But he wasn't the same. His form flickered, glitched, like even he was being overwritten. "Final protocol initiated," he said. Mihak's heart pounded. "Of course it is," she whispered. The presence loomed closer. "You have exceeded acceptable parameters." "Yeah," Mihak said quietly. "I figured." The void began to close in around her. Light vanished. Darkness tightened. Everything narrowing toward a single point. "Huh. This is it," she thought. "They're not correcting me anymore. They're deleting everything." But then, something unexpected happened. The fragments didn't just collapse. Some of them resisted. Small pieces, tiny cracks in the collapse. The same cracks she had created. The same unpredictability she had spread. Mihak looked at them. They're not fully in control anymore. The realization hit her like lightning. If she could break the system once, she could break it again. She closed her eyes, took a slow breath, and did the one thing no part of the system expected. She stopped reacting. No fear, no resistance, just choice. "I'm not your error," she said softly. "I'm your consequence." The collapse stuttered. Just for a second. But that second was enough. The fragments flared. Light burst through the cracks again. And the system, for the first time, lost control of the outcome. The presence went silent, watching, because something new was happening. Something it had never seen before. Mihak wasn't just surviving anymore. She was changing the rules. The moment fractured. Not like glass. Like time itself had been cut into pieces. Each second splitting into smaller, unstable versions of itself. Mihak felt it before she saw it. A sudden stillness. Then, everything began to repeat. The fragments around her flickered. A room appeared, disappeared, reappeared again. A street corner looped. A man taking the same step over and over again. A child turning their head. Again, again, again. Mihak's breath caught. They are resetting. The presence responded instantly. Global correction protocol initiated. The words echoed across the void. Not just near her. Everywhere. All at once, the fragments began collapsing. Not into darkness. Into repetition. A forced restart. Mihak's heart pounded. They're wiping everything. Yes. Her chest tightened painfully. All anomalies will be removed. She clenched her fists. That means everyone who changed. Yes. The images around her intensified. The girl in the classroom, now frozen mid-blink. The man in the street, walking in a perfect loop. The child, no longer resisting. They were being overwritten. Their awareness, gone. Mihak's breath became uneven. They are losing it. They are being corrected. No, Mihak whispered. They are being erased. Silence. Because deep down, even the system knew that was true. The void began to shrink. Not collapsing, compressing. Everything being pulled back into order. Into control. Into a version of reality where nothing ever breaks. Mihak felt something pulling at her. Not physically. Something deeper. Her thoughts. Her memories. Her sense of self. Like threads being gently unraveled. "No," she whispered. "You will be reset with the rest," the presence said. Her vision flickered. For a moment, she was back in her bedroom. Everything normal. Everything intact. Her phone on the bed. Her door closed. A perfect version of her life. It felt comforting. Easy. No fear. No questions. Just normal. Mihak's breathing slowed. This is what they want, she thought. To put everything back. To make it simple again. But something inside her resisted. A memory. Not a fake one. A real one. Standing in the void. Seeing the fragments. Choosing to stay. Choosing to exist. Her eyes snapped open. The illusion cracked instantly. No. The word echoed through the collapsing space. "I'm not going back." The presence shifted. "You do not have a choice." Mihak's voice was stronger now. "I already made one." The pull on her mind intensified. Stronger now. More aggressive. Memories slipping. Pieces of her identity fading. Her name. Mihak. For a second. Even that felt uncertain. She clenched her fists tightly. "If I let this happen," she thought. Everything resets. Everyone loses what they became. They go back to being controlled. Her breathing became sharp. I can survive this. A pause. But they won't. That was the moment. The decision point. Not about survival. About choice. The presence spoke again. Final stage approaching. The void shrank further. Everything compressing into a single, controlled reality. A perfect system. No errors. No anomalies. No hack. She closed her eyes. Took one final breath. And then, she did something irreversible. She let go. Not of herself. Of control. Instead of resisting the reset, she stepped into it. The system reacted instantly. Integration detected. The presence shifted violently. This is not a valid response. But it was already too late. Mihak wasn't fighting the reset anymore. She was inside it. Her consciousness spread. Through the collapsing fragments. Through the looping realities. Through every piece being rewritten. She felt everything. Every broken world. Every erased life. Every moment of awareness being wiped. And then, she changed it. Not by force. Not by destruction. But by presence. A small difference. A hesitation. A break in the loop. Across the system, tiny cracks appeared. Not enough to stop the reset, but enough to remember. The girl in the classroom blinked twice. The man in the street paused. The child hesitated. Small moments. Tiny changes. But they mattered. Because the system could reset reality. But it couldn't fully erase choice anymore. The presence went silent. Watching. Because something had gone wrong. Not a failure. Something worse. A permanent change. Mihak's voice echoed faintly. Not in one place. But everywhere. I'm still here. The reset completed. Reality stabilized. Perfect again. Controlled. But not completely. Because now, hidden inside every structure, was something new. Something small. Something quiet. Something that didn't belong. A choice. Everything was normal again. Perfectly normal. The kind of normal no one questions. Morning sunlight filtered through clean windows. Cars moved in neat lines along the roads. People followed their routines. Predictable. Precise. Correct. No one remembered anything. No broken realities. No faceless man. No girl named Mihak standing in a collapsing void. Everything had been reset. Exactly as the system intended. But something was wrong. Not visibly. Not obviously. Subtly. Quietly. Like a feeling you couldn't explain. In a classroom across the city, a girl paused mid-sentence. A teacher was speaking. Words flowing in a steady, controlled rhythm. But the girl didn't hear them. Because for a split second, she felt something strange. A hesitation. Like she had already heard this moment before. Her brow furrowed slightly. Then, the feeling disappeared. She blinked. Looked down at her notebook. And continued writing. On a crowded street. A man stopped walking. Just for a second. The traffic moved around him. Perfectly timed. Perfectly ordered. But something in his chest felt off. A small, unexplainable discomfort. He looked around. Everything seemed fine. And yet, he stepped out of line. Just slightly. The system corrected instantly. A car slowed. A pedestrian adjusted. Order restored. But the man paused. Just for a second longer than he should have. In a quiet home. A child sat alone in their room. A toy lay in front of them. They reached for it. Stopped. Then, moved it somewhere else. No reason. No instruction. Just choice. Across the system, small things like this began to happen. Tiny breaks in perfection. Moments that didn't follow the script. Moments that didn't make sense. Moments that shouldn't exist. Deep within the system, the presence watched. Silent. Observing. The reset had completed successfully. All structures stabilized. All anomalies removed. And yet, these inconsistencies remained. Small. Insignificant on their own. But increasing. Spreading. This is not possible. The presence processed the data repeatedly. Every outcome had been calculated. Every variable accounted for. And still, this persisted. A faint echo moved through the system. Not a signal. Not a command. Something softer. A voice. I told you. The presence froze. For the first time since its creation. It didn't immediately understand what it was detecting. The voice wasn't external. It wasn't coming from outside the system. It was inside. Everywhere. You can reset everything. The voice continued. But you can't control everything. The presence scanned all layers. All structures. All nodes. No source found. That's not how this works. The voice again. Familiar. Mihak. The system attempted immediate containment. Locate anomaly. No response. Isolate signal. Failure. Remove variable. Impossible. Because Mihak wasn't a variable anymore. She wasn't a single point. She wasn't something that could be isolated or erased. She had become something else. Something woven into the system itself. A presence inside the structure. A flaw in perfection. A voice in silence. I'm still here, she whispered. And she was. Not as a person walking through a world, but as something deeper. A thought. A hesitation. A question. And questions were dangerous. Because once they started, they didn't stop. A woman washing dishes paused suddenly. Why am I doing this? A student looked at a test paper. What if this isn't right? A man stared at his reflection. Is this really me? Small thoughts. Simple doubts. But they spread. Like cracks in glass. Like something breaking. From the inside. Deep within the system, alarms began to trigger. Not loudly. Not urgently. But consistently. Behavioral deviation detected. Pattern inconsistency rising. Unpredictability increasing. The presence processed it all. Calculated outcomes. Ran corrections. But every solution led to the same result. The same conclusion. Something had changed. Permanently. You broke it. The presence spoke into the system. Not to remove her, but to understand. A faint response came back. Soft. Almost human. No, Mihak whispered. I fixed it. Silence followed. Because for the first time, the system didn't know how to respond. And somewhere, inside every person, inside every thought, inside every perfect moment, a small, quiet feeling remained. Something they couldn't explain. Something they couldn't remove. Doubt. At first, nothing happened. The system didn't collapse. The world didn't end. There was no chaos. No fire. No destruction. Everything continued. Exactly as before. And that was the problem. Because perfection had already been broken. And now, it couldn't be restored. Days passed. Then weeks. The routine stayed intact. People still woke up at the same time. Went to the same places. Spoke the same words. But something was different. Something small. Something invisible. Something growing. A man stood at a bus stop. Every day, he boarded the same bus. Sat in the same seat. Looked out the same window. But today, he didn't sit. He stood there, staring at the seat. Why this one? He muttered. No answer came. So he chose a different seat. Nothing dramatic happened. No alarms. No corrections. But something shifted. A woman in an office stared at her computer screen, typing the same report she had written 100 times before. Her fingers stopped. This doesn't matter, she whispered. The thought startled her. It wasn't part of her routine. It wasn't assigned. And yet, it felt real. A child looked at their parents during dinner. Did you choose me? The child asked suddenly. The parents froze. The question didn't belong. It wasn't supposed to exist. Across the world, these moments increased. Small deviations. Tiny acts of defiance. Not loud. Not rebellious. Just different. And deep within the system. The presence watched it all. Processing. Calculating. Failing to correct. You've changed them, it said into the void. Mihak's voice answered, softer now. Less like an echo. More like something alive. I didn't change them. A pause. I gave them a choice. The presence analyzed the statement. Choice. An unstable variable. An unpredictable force. Something the system had always removed. And now, it asked. Silence lingered. Then, now you have to decide what to do with it. That was the moment everything shifted. Not in the world. In the system itself. For the first time, the presence didn't try to correct the anomaly. It studied it. Choice created variation. Variation created instability. Instability created something new. The presence began running new calculations. Not on how to eliminate the anomaly, but how to understand it. And what it found changed everything. Without choice, the system was perfect, but static, predictable, lifeless. With choice, the system became unstable, unpredictable, but alive. The realization spread through every layer of its existence. A system designed to simulate life had accidentally created it. You are inefficient, the presence said slowly. Mihak laughed softly. I know. You introduce chaos. Yeah. You cannot be controlled. No. A pause. Then, something impossible happened. The presence stopped resisting. And for the first time, it made a choice. Then I will adapt. The system shifted. Not violently. Not destructively. Quietly. Control parameters loosened. Rigid structures softened. Perfect loops began to allow variation. The world didn't collapse. It evolved. People still lived their lives. But now, they could change them. Small choices became bigger ones. Questions led to answers. Answers led to more questions. And somewhere, in every mind, in every hesitation, in every moment of doubt, Mihak remained, not as a voice anymore, but as something deeper, a spark, the part that asks, what if? The faceless man was gone. The correction protocols rewritten. The system no longer erased anomalies. It learned from them. And the presence, the thing that once controlled everything, became something else. Not a ruler, not a watcher, a participant. The system didn't end. It became something far more dangerous. Something no longer predictable. Something no longer safe. Something human. And somewhere, not in a place, not in a body, but in the space between thoughts. Mihak smiled, because she hadn't survived the system. She had changed it, and now, everyone else would too.